Detroit Lions will rise.
All right. Hey, good morning. Welcome to the Rise and Grind Morning Show from the cold, snowy studios of Rocked On Studios here in Gun Lake, Michigan. We've got a jam-packed show for you today. Riley's going to be off, I think, for at least the first hour, maybe the entire day. I can't blame the guy, man. He gets up super early, and today he probably needs a little bit of extra shut-eye. So Eric and I are going to handle some franchise tag candidate news. We're going to talk about all 32 teams. Richie Incognito and the Jonathan Martin Bully Gate. Yes, we're going to talk about that too. Sounds familiar, right? I kind of deal with some similar stuff that Richie Incognito is dealing with, but we rise above, right? NFL news, we got some weird vibes between Stafford and the Rams going on. Maybe some Kelly Stafford and stuff going on there too. And then also Jair Alexander. What's going on? Is he going to be departing the Green Bay Packers? We're going to talk about all of that in NFL news. And then Lions news, we have franchise tag. When's the last time the Lions have used it? How about Ben Johnson? Very concerning, according to Mina Kimes, what happened this offseason for the Detroit Lions. That she fears that possibly the Lions are in trouble. But then we're going to tell you why John Morton is the answer. The Lions are going to be just fine. All that and more coming up here in the Rise and Grind Morning Show. Good morning, everybody. We'll be back here in just a few moments.
Every day, thousands of people are discovering Uper Lights, Michigan's newest, funnest rock to go find on the shores of the Great Lakes. Don't go out with just any light. Try the Convoy C8 from uperlights.com. It's guaranteed for life, and you'll find all the ones everyone else misses. Quality UV lights that are perfect for Uper Lights with prices starting as low as $20. Please make sure to visit uperlights.com for all your UV flashlight needs with the best guarantees on the market. Just what you wanted and not what you didn't. The best quality, the best guarantees, and the best UV flashlights from uperlights.com. Every day, thousands of people are discovering Uper Lights, Michigan's newest, funnest rock to go find on the shores of the Great Lakes. Don't go out with just any light. Try the Convoy C8 from...
All right. We are back. Let me get Eric in the house. Good morning, Eric. How are you this morning?
Fantastic. A little bit chilly, but schools are closed. Everybody's fine.
Schools are closed. Come on, man. We used to walk to school barefoot, uphill, both ways in minus 30-degree weather. These kids are soft.
Yep.
They're soft. They're soft. You know, I didn't even wear a jacket to school.
Dude, I never wore pants in school. It was always shorts.
Something tells me that probably really did happen.
I'm not kidding. I used to go years with only ever wearing shorts. I never got cold.
I'm not wearing pants right now, but you know what? None of you would know that. Just kidding. Just kidding.
It's like a Zoom meeting, right?
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, look, it is freezing outside. Like, holy cow, is it cold? Last night I had to fill up Megan's tires because, it dips below the threshold, right? So I had to fill it back up for her. And I wasn't even outside for about 30 seconds, it felt like, and my hands were numb. But I didn't have gloves on, because I'm an idiot. So it is cold. It is really cold right now.
What a day we live in now that your vehicle sends you a text and tells you your tires are low.
Yeah, exactly.
Both my vehicles do that. I'm like, this is stupid.
Yeah. No, you know what? I used to just, do the old school method. Just look at it, kick it a couple of times, do the thumb press, all right, it's a little soft. Let's put some air in it. And before you know it, it's up to 50 pounds and you wore your tires out in 10,000 miles. But yeah, we're a little bit more educated today about our vehicles for sure. So, hey, let's kick it off. Good morning to everybody in the chat this morning. Welcome to the Rise and Grind Morning Show. We're going to be talking about NFL and Detroit Lions news like we do every single day. And let's kick it off with the Bullygate here. What happened yesterday with Richie Incognito and Jonathan Martin? I can't say that I'm surprised, right? I can't say that I'm surprised. And why does this come out now? Eric. So walk us through, I guess, what happened. This was big news a decade ago. Like, this almost ruined Richie's career. I mean, kind of did to a degree. He probably lost a lot of money during this whole scenario. But what the hell happened in the Bullygate?
Yeah, so this is a scandal that's more than 11 years old, and it's back in the spotlight after former Dolphins offensive tackle Jonathan Martin changed his tune about alleged mistreatment by teammates, specifically Mr. Incognito. And the Dolphins were rocked by the Bullygate scandal in 2013, stemming from an incident that ended with Martin storming out of the facility. Martin claimed he was a victim of bullying and harassment from teammates, particularly Richie Incognito, who would be suspended as a result of the allegations and was later implicated in the NFL's final report on the investigation. Now Martin is claiming the story wasn't quite what it seemed for the past decade. In fact, Martin is now saying that I never believed for a second I was being bullied, Martin said, explaining that he's been trying to fix the story for the last decade. Now, Richie Incognito has texted a few people like who's the Florio, and I think it was Florio, one of them, and told him that, you know, until the guy comes out and apologizes publicly, and then every affiliate that ran a story about him being a bully apologizes to him, he won't accept any apology. So he wants ESPN and Sports Center and all of them. He wants every news outlet, ABC, CBS, NBC, all of them to give him a formal public apology for what they did to him. Now, the guy's not a saint, and that's what they found out, that he was, you know, kind of a bully. But apparently what he was accused of doing, he did not do at all.
Yeah,
and he has maintained his innocence for the last 11 years.
Yeah, this one doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So how does the Wells investigation, which was an absolute clown show, according to Martin, how does the Wells investigation come up with a determination that Richie Incognito was in fact this big bad bully and was troubling Mr. Martin, right? I mean, how do they even come to that conclusion if it really didn't happen? And maybe there's an inflection point in here where it speaks to something going on. But I will say this. I don't know how you really become a bully in the NFL or when you're playing sports. Look, there's a certain element to a locker room that it's part of the process, right? You're going to get razzed a little bit. You're going to get hazed a little bit, especially when you're younger or a rookie or a freshman. You're going to have to go through things, right? The elder statesmen in the crowd, you know, the leaders of the team, the captains, whatever, you know, the guys that are starters. Maybe you're not a starter yet. They're going to give you a little bit of crap. That's part of it. Now, there becomes a point where it can go too far. But you're grown-ass men. How are you going to come out and say that you were bullied as a grown man? Even though it does happen, I get it. And I respect anyone that has had to go through that or endure, you know, a bully throughout their lifetime. Obviously, it's not a good situation for anybody. But this Bullygate just stinks. And now that it's coming out this 11 years later, whatever it's been, I'm wondering if there's going to be some lawsuits flying now against some of these news media outlets. And this is exactly why, again, it is so important that you get the story right, that you get the truth, the honest, the transparent media back into the NFL, back into the mainstream media. That is why I try to do what I do, and what Eric is doing, what he's doing, is we try to be truthful, honest, and transparent. We have, you know, opinions. We have hardline takes, we have soft takes, but more importantly, it's trying to be honest about what we do. Not going to manufacture a bunch of crap for clicks. Not going to provide a bunch of clickbait. I'm not going to throw the Lions under the bus. I mean, if they do something wrong, yeah, we'll talk about it. If a player has a bad day at the office, yeah, we'll talk about it. But I'm not going to sit here and try to pump narratives and bully Broderick Martin or Brad Holmes, because it just doesn't make any sense at all. I'll read this. I'm going to flip it back to you. So Martin blamed his mother for the scandal that was spiraling into the bully gate. Do you have the quote about this? Do you want to read that, or do you want me to read it?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so it says, I had a situation with my teammates that I wasn't super happy about. This was Martin saying this. He said, but my mother had her own read on the situation. Martin said that his mom was the one who first used the word bullying to describe what was happening. And it's the word that stuck in media reports. I get it. Mom is protecting her son, right? She sees a different situation and doesn't realize that this is the NFL, right? You're going to go through some stuff. There's some stuff that goes on in those locker rooms, on and off the field. So it just sucks for, Richie. And to your point, he's not a saint. Like, Richie was a jerk. He was definitely a jerk. I mean, I think that what came out in all those reports, the Wells report and all that, you could tell that he wasn't the nicest teammate. But I don't think that he was outwardly just trying to, bully these guys into oblivion and ruin their careers. And there's a lot of different things that were said that I'm not going to go into today. But Richie has every right to be upset. I mean, wherever the truth lies, I'm going to say this is probably somewhere in the middle. There's probably truth to both sides. But
yeah, now Richie Incognito was an a-hole. He was a beast on the field, and he was an amazing offensive lineman. But what I will say is this Wells, he was an attorney, and he was hired by the NFL to do this report on the Richie Incognito case. And he came up with this, fabricated report saying that, Richie Incognito was guilty of all the stuff that Martin was saying. And then you're never going to guess who the attorney was that investigated Deflategate. Mr. Wells one more time. So you have to take anything that comes from Wells with a grain of salt. And I listened to, I think it was, it was another podcast with a well-known person. And they were saying that it was just like Bountygate, Deflategate, that the NFL, instead of putting something out that said to all 32 teams, we need to stop this because we know what's going on league wide, because there used to be a lot of, hey, if you blow up the quarterback today, you're going to get so much money. And then if you take the quarterback out and he's out of the game, you get so much money. Now, these were all supposed to be legal hits and supposed to be, legal things to do, but giving them money for it was the non-legal part. That was what Bountygate was all about. And the media just took it and ran with it, that the Saints were dirty and blah, blah, blah. Well, every team was doing this. It wasn't just the Saints. And instead of making it a league-wide thing to stop, they just punished the Saints mercilessly, and they figured that would get everyone else to stop. So that's kind of how this whole Richie Incognito thing went. Instead of trying to stop bullying league-wide, they just tried to make an example out of Richie Incognito. And it just so happened to be Mr. Wells 2 or 3 times here in the NFL, in all these great big drama-filled mysteries of the NFL.
So I guess let me wrap this up in a little bow for us here. This whole Bullygate came out at a time when cyberbullying was becoming a big problem. Bullying in school has always been a problem, and I get why the NFL probably took the stance that they did, trying to show solidarity with anybody that has been bullied in their lifetime, and trying to promote a better side to the NFL, trying to make it a little bit more clean. I get it. I understand it. But at the same time, you kind of threw Richie under the bus. And I'm not going to take a side either way. I think that, like I said before, the truth is going to lie in the middle here. But here's what I'm going to say to Mr. Martin, old Jonathan Martin here. If you never thought his statement, quote, never believed for a second, end quote, that he was being bullied by Richie Incognito, then why didn't you come to the mic? Why didn't you go to the news and say, this isn't true 11 years ago? Why did you have to wait until you're out of the NFL? That doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm calling BS. Calling BS on this whole thing. If you really felt that way and you feel like you're trying to clean it up now for a decade, you've had a decade's worth of opportunity. Hell, the last 2 years you could have come on this show. Not that you even know who we are, but you get what I'm saying. You know, he could have started somewhere. So anyway, bullying's not cool. Don't bully people. We know that there's some bullies in the content creation industry that try to talk crap about other channels. Hey, dig your own grave, buddy. Dig your own grave, because that's where it's headed, man. You're putting yourself behind the 8 ball, and people see it. People absolutely see it. So just don't do it, right? Let me pull up the sheet again because I lost my sheet. So where did my sheet go? All right, here we go. Franchise tag. I think we'll do that in just a second because that's going to be a long segment. But weird vibes, I guess, here. This was Riley's NFL news of the day. So weird vibes linger between Matthew Stafford and the Rams. So the Rams are in a tough spot with Stafford. At some point, they need to pivot to a younger potential franchise quarterback on a rookie deal, on a lower contract with a much lower price tag than the one that Stafford warrants. Now, it's evident that Stafford has started clamoring for a revised contract in the immediate aftermath of round 1 of the 2024 draft when the Rams did not take a quarterback. That I don't get, okay? Isn't he making a ton of money? I don't even know how much he's making, but he's got to be north of $45 million. That was Stafford's chance to really leverage and negotiate, and now he's on the outs of his career. I can't imagine that the Rams are going to go to Jimmy Garoppolo or somebody else in the league. Maybe they'll try to pull Sam Darnold in. Maybe they bridge for a year and they bring somebody in, next year's draft. I don't think Stafford's leaving, and I don't think that he's going to be traded. I think he's 36 years old, and he's at the ends of his career. He's still playing good football, but even he himself has had to question whether or not he's going to play every single season. For the last three seasons, he's had to question it. I don't think that Stafford's going to win another ring. I don't even think it's close. They got a great defense right now. But without Cooper Kupp, I mean, they have to really rebuild that offense to a degree. They need to bring in probably 2, if not 3 wide receivers, possibly another tight end. So I just don't see where the Rams are going to get it done. I don't. Defense is only going to take you so far. If you can't put up points, you're not going to win anything. So this is, to me, I really think it's a non-issue. But the quote is this. And I'm not sure where this came from here. They're talking about Matthew Stafford. So this might have been Mike Florio. It says, remember, when Rams GM Les Snead was asked about the possibility of trading Stafford, and he did not say, quote, next question. He said, quote, I'll take someone calling or us reaching out if we want to do that. Those are the things that'll be determined down the road. So the question for us today, Eric, is, are the Rams good enough to justify paying Stafford his cap number of nearly $50 million, or are they going to trade him before June 1st, which would spark a $37 million cap charge, but allow them to start the process of finding their franchise quarterback? So I guess I'll answer this one first, and I'll say, yeah, it would probably be a post-June 1. I think that they're probably going to be better off with a post-June 1 designation, and I don't have it in front of me, but I'm going to pull it up. I don't see them trading Stafford, and if they do, they're not going to get what happened with Jared Goff, right? They're not going to get that kind of a deal back to recoup what they invested into Matthew Stafford. It's not going to be a couple of firsts. It's probably going to be a second and maybe a fourth or something like that. But what are your thoughts here? Do you think the Rams are going to pay him $50 million this year and let him play out one more season? Or do you think that Matthew Stafford is going to move on?
I honestly think he's going to end up a New York Giant, because I think the New York Giants are willing to give up the number 3 overall pick. And I don't know what that would mean for the Rams.
As opposed to taking a quarterback for the Giants?
Yeah. They want someone that's stable, that's been there, that's done that, that's won a Super Bowl. I think they're tired of trying to draft quarterbacks and reach and not hit, because how many quarterbacks taken in the first round won the Super Bowl in the last 4 years?
None.
Not very many, you know?
None. The answer is none. Zero.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, first round drafted quarterbacks don't even usually make the playoffs for the first 2.5 years. That's the math. So call it 3 seasons. They typically don't even make the playoffs. Now, C.J. Stroud and Jaden Daniels are the outliers of that. And that's been a long time coming that statistic has stood in the NFL. Looking at Matthew Stafford's contract right now, yeah, he was paid $46 million last year. He's going to get paid $49 million this year. So if they decided to move off of him, if they were to designate him a post-June 1 release, which I need to pull up over the cap for that. I don't think it's going to be some massive savings.
Yeah.
I really don't. And that's what lends me to believe it's just not going to happen. So if they were to trade him post June 1, they would have $22.6 million dead cap this year, and they would have a $27 million savings. So that does make sense. And then in 2026, they would have another 22.6 dead and a $31 million cap savings. So this was obviously the out year for the Rams. This was the out year for them to walk away. When they renegotiated his contract, he was paid $13 million in 22 after winning a Super Bowl. He was paid $20 million in 23, $46 million in 24. So he just raked in $80 million in the previous 3 seasons. And then now he's due 49 and 53 respectively. What I will say is, how does this link to the Lions? Jared Goff's contract is very similar. The Lions have an out coming up, and it's after this season where things will start to maybe make sense if they're going to move off of Jared Goff. So if the Lions, if they don't probably win it all this year, I'm going to say this. I think that there's an opportunity for Goff to be gone next year. But to tie this into Matthew Stafford, it does make sense if they do a post-June 1 designation for a trade. Even if they do a pre-June 1, that's where they don't win, because they'll have a $45 million cap hit, and then they only save 4.3. So it has to be post-June 1. We're not going to hear anything about this until after June of this year. So what is your take on that?
Well, I got one little thing. I found something else, and it's something that I've been seeing coming up in my social media about Kelly Stafford. All right. So this is from Colin Cowherd, and the Rams do like Matt Stafford, but they're tiring of the constant quarterback talk. His wife saying things publicly. They're not real happy with Cooper Kupp going public with something they tried to keep quiet. They're kind of over Cooper Kupp, and with that, a little bit Matthew Stafford. And they like him, but they don't want to restructure his deal and give him a new contract. Kelly Stafford, meanwhile, has said that she didn't plan on discussing the trade rumors, but she decided to address things on her morning after podcast.
Of course she did.
Yeah. So listen, she doesn't hold anything back. And like I was talking to Will before the show, Rams fans and Rams executives, you think you're tired of Kelly Stafford after 4 seasons? We had her for 12, 13 years here in the D. So I'm telling you right now, when Matthew Stafford comes back to play in LA, don't boo his kids. All right. They'll slay you for it.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of slay, I am going to have to talk about Big Play Slay probably tomorrow. But he did mention some things on his podcast about the Detroit Lions and Amon-Ra St. Brown. So I will get into that. Maybe I'll just do a video on it today. So, to wrap this thing up here, I guess it's simple. Post June 1 for Matthew Stafford. I don't think it's going to be anything sooner. Quite honestly, I don't know the answer to this question. I don't know if you can make a trade before the draft and consider it a post June 1 trade or release. I don't know how sticky that is in the NFL that they can make a trade. They could probably get all the paperwork done, send the picks over to the Rams. Just Stafford can't walk into the building until after June 1, I guess is my educated guess. But I don't know how it really works if they're allowed to do that or not. But I think that if they can, that's what they would do. To wrap it up, I do find it hard to believe, just like I'm going to read Riley's statement. He says, I find it hard to believe that Stafford will want to uproot and change teams, particularly to a place like New York on the opposite end of the country, and especially where the Giants don't seem to be just a quarterback away. I agree with that. But at this point, as competitive as Stafford is, it may just honestly be to earn every last dollar he can, because no matter what happens from here on out, he has his stats and his ring. I wholeheartedly agree with that statement by Riley that if anything, it's money grab right now for Stafford. That does make sense. New York is definitely not one player away. And I think you can make that statement about any team. No team is one player away. No team is one edge rusher away. No team is one running back away or cornerback or safety or anybody else. It takes a team, and it takes a deep team to win. It takes a healthy team to win. So I agree with that. So next up, Jair Alexander. What's going on in Green Bay Packer country, your favorite neighborhood?
Yeah. So Jair Alexander, he's given the cold shoulder to the media, and it sparks rumors about the Packers' future. Heading into the 2025 NFL calendar year, one of the biggest questions surrounding the Green Bay Packers is the future of cornerback Jair Alexander with the organization. Initially drafted by the team all the way back in 2018, Alexander has played every snap of his career with the Packers. But after consecutive seasons of playing just 7 games apiece, some wondered if one side or the other, maybe both, could be looking to move on heading into the 2025 season. There are strong indications that Alexander's time with the Packers will end without him playing another down. Multiple team sources have privately expressed their frustration with Alexander's inability to stay healthy and or play through injuries. Sounds kind of like Iffy Melifonwu. For the second straight season, Alexander appeared in 7 of 17 regular season games. When Jair was asked to speak with the media at locker room cleanout at the end of the season, he declined, saying he doesn't even know if he's going to be here next year. He said he didn't have anything good to say, so definitely wasn't going to talk. It's hard to know what Alexander may be so frustrated about. Maybe it's because he wasn't able to help his team during the playoffs because of his injury or the uncertainty of his future. Or maybe he didn't get along with his head coach and other players on the team, is what I think it was. He just seems to be a problem. And even when he made it out on the field for 7 games in the last 2 years, he just didn't seem the same. And when you go on social media and you look what Packer fans are saying about this guy, they want him gone. They are talking about trading him to the Ravens. And I just thought that was mind-blowing that their fans want this guy gone, that they think he is a cancer.
So I guess I'll say this. First, I put a question in the chat, and I'd love to know in the comments below later on, too. Would you want Jair Alexander to join the Detroit Lions on a cap-friendly deal in 2025? Regardless of what his contract is, I'm not even going to play the contract game right now. Would you want Jair Alexander to join the Detroit Lions in 2025 if it was a 1-year cap-friendly deal? And when I see all of your answers, I'm going to give a response, and we'll see if it makes any sense, compared to, other players that we've been talking about already this offseason. But I also have one other quick question. How's the audio this morning? Because I made a big adjustment last night after listening back to a show. Like my audio sounded distorted. So,
really?
Yep. Let me know what you guys think of the audio this morning. So here we go. Jair Alexander. I'm going to say definitively I don't want him. And the reason why is simple to me. when you look at his injury history, I would say that that's concerning, yes, but it's not so much about the injuries that I'm worried about. It is the attitude. It is, the way that he plays the game. And you can get above and beyond injuries. I mean, it only takes one season to stay healthy. So if he could stay healthy in 2025, yeah, he could have a great year. You can't deny his ability. He's a hell of a football player. But it's the attitude. And I think that speaks volumes just about in anything in life. Like, if your attitude isn't great, it doesn't matter what your intangibles are. It doesn't matter what your football skill is. If your attitude doesn't meet the threshold of what the team wants, you're no good to them. So here's what I'll tell you guys. I mean, since 2017, he missed 4 games in 2017 to a sprained knee, and then another game to a knee injury that he aggravated. Then he broke a bone in 2017 in his hand, and he was during practice, missed a game. And then in 2018, so he missed 6 games in 2017. In 2018, he missed another 2 games with a groin, and then a third game with a groin in week 17. In 2020, he missed, he broke his right thumb during the NFC Championship game. So that's still 2018 season. Then in 2020, he suffered a concussion during the 49ers game, missed 1 game. And then in 2021, he missed 13 games to an AC joint injury of his shoulder. 2022 went down in the first quarter of week 3 with an inguinal groin pull. And then he hurt his shoulder again. Missed another 6 games in 2023. And then in 2024, missed another 2 games to a groin injury. He clearly has something wrong with his groin because it keeps popping up in just about every season where something's going on. That just needs to get healed. I don't know if he's had surgery on it, but he needs to obviously do something about it. So he's missed, 2, 8, 9, 22, 23, 24, 26, 28. He's missed 32 football games since 2017 season. 32 football games. If I were to take a wild guess, let's say it's 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 40. That'd be 54 football games? Hold on here. 8 times 17. So 17, 18, 19, 20. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 8 seasons. So 136 games in those 8 seasons. He's missed 24%. Sounds like Carlton Davis. Carlton Davis also missed 23% of his time in the NFL. So the question is, do you want Giant? It's 50-50 split. So we've got 22 votes. It's dead even, 50-50. The reason why I threw this out there, because I had a backdoor angle at this, and that's Marcus Davenport. A lot of people saying that he's too injured and can't keep him on the team because he's always injured. Well, I think you can say the same thing about Alexander. You can say the same thing about Carlton Davis. Look, Davis missed more games than Davenport did in the same time frame. But I don't hear anybody complaining about Carlton. Matter of fact, they want to bring him back and pay him $15 million a year. So I don't know how that happens. I don't know how we can say one thing about one player, but another player has the exact same injury history, and we want to pay that player. It's weird to me. I don't get it. So anyway, we'll motor on here. I want to read an email that I got last night, and then we're going to jump into the 32 franchise tag candidates. I know that's going to be a little bit of a longer segment. But I received an email, and once in a while I do this stuff. I'll share these things. I will not share your name, but I'm going to share the basis of this email, because when I set out to do this, it's obviously because of the love of the Detroit Lions, also, rehabbing post-cancer, and wanted to eventually start a cancer foundation, which I was able to do in year 2. And when I read this email, it made me, one, it was a warm-hearted email, but it made me realize that what we're doing here does help. And it does reach people differently, but to me, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. And so I'm just going to read it. Again, I'm not going to mention the individual's name, but it says, "Dear Will, I wanted to take a moment to share my appreciation for the incredible content you create surrounding the Detroit Lions. As a fan, your videos have become a go-to resource for me, whether it's breaking down game strategies or providing insights into the team's latest developments and what's just around the bend with your altruistic foreshadowing. I also wanted to take a moment to express my sincere appreciation for the work you do. While I don't know the full extent of the medical challenges you faced, your ability to share your journey and overcome adversity has inspired me in ways that I didn't expect. Your dedication to your craft, despite your struggles, has encouraged me to adopt a more resilient mindset and shifted the way I view my own challenges. It's not easy to convey the experience of living with a condition that others can't fully comprehend, but your transparency has offered me a new perspective. Even when it feels like many people, including medical professionals, might not fully grasp the complexity of personal suffering, you show how empathy, active listening, and understanding can bridge the gap. It's rare to find someone in your position who not only perseveres through hardship, but uses that experience to elevate others. Your commitment to providing meaningful content and fostering empathy, especially in a world where such qualities seem to be in short supply, hasn't gone unnoticed. I admire how you've transformed your passion into a profession, and it's made a profound impact on me. Thank you for your work, for instilling optimism and perspective in your audience. You are helping to raise the standards of journalism and the way we connect with each other. Your efforts are deeply appreciated, even if they don't always receive the recognition they deserve. Now, there were some other things in here that I won't read because it wasn't necessarily about the channel or anything else. So I'll skip down, and it says, thanks again for all that you do. Apologies for the long email. I'm not the best at brevity. Well, I'm not either. I'm always long-winded. It says, keep up the fantastic work. You're more right than you know. The masses don't appreciate highbrow, thought-provoking content so much as the short, derivative drivel that your antagonist puts out. And there are intelligent Lions fans who see the time and effort and are thankful to no end. Keep the faith. It is hard for anyone or anything too different from pack to survive, but people will learn there is better content available, and eventually will find you just as I have, and your channel will grow, says Rock On Brother. So, look, I appreciate the email, but it speaks not so much about me, right? I mean, I appreciate the warm email and the compliments and everything else, but the fact that we're affecting even one person, we're winning. And giving someone hope and helping them to develop a mindset that no matter what you face in life, there's another path. And you just have to keep plugging away. That is what the Rocked On Cancer Foundation is all about. It is helping others first. We didn't even really help this individual, but yet we did. Right? We did by just trying to be here for people and in sharing good, wholesome content and information. So I appreciate it. You'll go nameless today. You know who you are if you're in the chat. Really appreciate you. And hopefully we can help affect more people. So let's get into the 32, Eric.
Hey, yeah. All right. Let's talk about the franchise tag and candidates for all 32 teams entering the 2025 NFL offseason starting February 18th, which is today, and running through March 4th. Teams can place one of three tags on a single player. With the tag applied, both sides will have time to negotiate a deal, and should they be unable to reach an agreement, a significant one-year deal will go into effect, pushing the cart further down the road. Let's take a look at each team's biggest candidate. And we're going to start with, in alphabetical order, the Arizona Cardinals. And this says that they have no one that they would want to franchise tag. Cardinals general manager Monty Ossenfort proactively secured Arizona's key contributors during the regular season, signing Budda Baker to 3 years, $54 million, and James Conner to 2 years, $19 million, 2 extensions. Now Ossenfort will turn to negotiating an extension for Trey McBride as the standout tight end enters a contract year.
Okay, so Cardinals don't have any. The Falcons don't have any either. Their biggest elephant in the room is Kirk Cousins and his future in Atlanta. That will largely dictate what the Falcons can feasibly do this offseason. I don't think Cousins is going to stick around in Atlanta. I mean, let's just be real. But he does carry a $40 million cap hit with more than $64 million in dead cap for 2025. That is such a huge number. Like,
Crap.
what was he thinking? You know, when their GM decided to do what they did, not only in the draft, but bringing in, you know, Kirk Cousins, what was it, $100 million deal or something like that?
Yeah.
I think it was a 2-year, 3-year deal. I don't even remember now, but $64 million in dead cap in 2025, and you have another quarterback that you want starting. That is a problem. How are you going to move off of Kirk Cousins and try to recap, you know, some of that dead money with some draft picks? I don't know, but clearly they can't franchise tag anybody. They can't afford to. So, Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, the Baltimore Ravens have none as well. The roster management becomes a complicated dance when you wield a significant cap charge at the quarterback position. Those are the circumstances Ravens general manager Eric DeCosta will look to navigate, as his team currently projects to be in the bottom 10 in available cap space this offseason, with fifth-year option extension decisions looming for Kyle Hamilton, Tyler Linderbaum, and a whopping $74.65 million cap hit tied to Lamar Jackson in 2026. Cap priorities lie elsewhere.
So before we get to the Buffalo Bills, Jay Cruzen has a message for you guys. He says you need to hit the damn like button. Jump out of listening for just a moment, smash the like button so we can get these ads off. People would rather have a seamless transition this morning with the media and enjoying the show. So if we can get these ads off, that would be great. All I ask is that we get to 75% by 8:30, or if we can get 75 likes by 9 a.m., then we turn them off. But right now we have 82 viewers in, at least 82. And we are at, where's the likes? Hold on. Just about 40 likes, or about 50%. We need to jump up. So jump out, jump in the chat, or jump out of the chat, smash the like button, get back in, and let's roll. Let's get these ads off quickly. So you were going to say something.
Yeah, so I'm going to say this about the Baltimore Ravens. They're talking about having a $74 million cap hit for Lamar Jackson. Doesn't that sound eerily similar to $64 million for Atlanta for Kirk Cousins, and eerily similar to a whole bunch of money for Jared Goff in 2026? There's a lot of 2026 quarterback hits coming up on these contracts.
I think that there's going to be a lot of movement in 2026 or restructures, but I don't think that the Baltimore Ravens are going to be moving off of Lamar Jackson, anytime soon. If anything, what happens in that third year of a contract is they usually restructure it, and it happens all the time. That's why I call NFL contracts a fugazi, because it's really never what it is. You know, they're going to get some money, but they're never going to get all the money. And the teams hold all the weight. I'm going to skip through, a lot of these that don't have any of the tags really on the line this season. Quickly. So Buffalo Bills, they don't have any. They have a very difficult cap situation in 2025 already. They are 29th in available cap space. Panthers, they're another one that doesn't have any tag implications. Chuba Hubbard's 4-year, $33.2 million extension in November addressed their most productive expiring contract. That is a good deal for Hubbard. The Bears, they also don't have anybody that they're looking at tagging. If anything, signing DJ Moore to a 4-year, $110 million extension in July took care of the most pressing need. How about the Bengals, Eric?
Well, this is where it gets interesting. So the Cincinnati Bengals tag candidate is none other than wide receiver T. Higgins. In 2024, he had a PFF grade of 88.6, which is absolutely elite, and his projected franchise tag value for 1 year is $26.17 million. Higgins is without a doubt one of the NFL's premier receivers. His 88.6 PFF overall grade this past season While playing on the franchise tag was a career high, he directly contributed to one of the NFL's most lethal passing attacks. Should Higgins hit free agent the hit Oh man, I can't talk today. Should Higgins hit the free agent market, he would rank as the top available free agent this season. He just played the 2024 season on a $21.8 million franchise tag. So it would cost the Bengals a pretty penny to use the tag on him a second time. The exclusive franchise tag would equate to 120% of his previous year's salary, landing north of $26 million. Although Cincinnati has the cap space to facilitate another Higgins tag this cycle, upcoming extension talks for Trey Hendrickson and Jamar Chase, as well as a laundry list of roster needs, could make a tag and or extension unfeasible.
Unfeasible. That's an interesting word. So with T. Higgins, I think 26 million is probably an appropriate number to pay the guy. I mean, if you were to sign him to a contract, I would think it probably would cost around 26 million a year on a 3-year deal at a minimum. So it is what it is. Tag him. You don't have a choice. Tag him and try to trade him if you really want to do something for your team. We've heard from Joe Burrow. He doesn't want Higgins to go anywhere, but you know what? There's plenty of good wide receivers in this draft. Go find one. Cleveland Browns, they clearly can't tag anybody. They don't have any money to work with. They're about $30 million upside down already. They can't do anything. Dallas Cowboys, obviously Dak Prescott got a record-breaking contract. It'll hit the hardest in 2025, carrying an outlandish $89 million cap hit. That is crazy. When I saw Aaron Rodgers' cap hit last year, it was $100 million to Aaron Rodgers. They restructured it. Does Dak get his contract restructured? Probably. Denver Broncos, they don't have anybody. They extended Patrick Surtain, Quinn Manierez, Garrett Bowles, and Jonathan Cooper, so they're good to go. Detroit Lions. Well,
this one's interesting.
Let's talk about the Lions for a moment. So even with key contributors like Carlton Davis, Kevin Zeitler, and Levi O facing expiring contracts, and the Lions holding the requisite cap space to facilitate the franchise tag, Brad Holmes likely won't exercise it again this offseason. The option likely would be allowing them to test free agency while Wayne re-signing with the Lions with a new deal. What do you think about the Lions tag situation here?
See, I think that's a tool that Brad Holmes will not use unless absolutely forced to, and I just don't think he's ever going to be forced into using it. There's smarter ways to do it, and I think that's why he got on top of the big contracts early. He signed Penei Sewell, he signed Amon-Ra, he signed Goff, he signed Monty. He got all these guys lined up so he doesn't have to do this. He's already kicked the can down the road to make decisions in 2026, 27, 28 on these guys. So I don't see them, unless we get to 27, 28, where you're having to figure something out for Gibbs or, Terrion Arnold or one of these newer players. That's when something like that might hit. But I just don't think it's in his arsenal to use.
I don't think so either. I don't think he's going to need to use it. I think that he drafts really well. He fills the pipeline, especially with, third, fourth round picks that don't have to play right away. I think that we're in a great position. The cap space he wants to keep, right? Every year he's carrying large amounts of money over to the next year. And that's a good problem to have. And I don't even know the final number that he carried over, but that's something that I'm going to have to figure out this week, because that could totally change what the Lions have for cap space. So Green Bay Packers, they don't have anybody to tag. They secured Jordan Love to a long-term deal. Big mistake. There's really nobody else that's really slated to hit free agency that they can't do away with. Texans, they had Nico Collins on a 3-year deal. Last year, I believe, is when they re-signed that. Stephon Diggs probably won't be with the team. He's the highest rated free agent. He was productive before going down with an ACL, but he has an ACL. He won't be back. He's not going to be there. I guarantee it. There's no way that you're going to keep an ACL on your team that at that kind of money. It just doesn't make any sense. Let him go. And maybe he comes back, maybe he doesn't. But don't pay somebody $21 million while they're rehabbing an ACL. Indianapolis Colts, and that's a harsh reality about the NFL. They don't have anybody either. General manager Chris Ballard has already gotten busy working out minor extensions, but he also faces questions regarding some key contributors on expiring deals. Will Fries, Deo, Odebingo, those are the highest profile names that come to mind. Jaguars, they don't have anybody. Matter of fact, they have dedicated significant money to extending their franchise cornerstones. Good idea before getting to that point. So Trevor Lawrence, Josh Hines, Allen, most recently Walker, all have secured lucrative deals. How about the Kansas City Chiefs, Eric?
Well, the Kansas City Chiefs, this is our second tag candidate, guard Trey Smith. He had a 2024 PFF grade of 76.6. His projected franchise tag value, $23 million. Currently touted as PFF's second-ranked free agent, Trey Smith is slated for a sizable payday, considering that all offensive line positions are calculated in the franchise tag figure. We rarely see interior linemen receive the designation. The exclusive franchise tag would land north of $23 million, making Smith the highest paid interior lineman in the NFL. The Chiefs aren't flush with cap space, making this an outside option that would take some maneuvering to facilitate. But Smith is undoubtedly a player worthy of investment, having earned a 72-plus PFF grade in each of his first 4 seasons.
So, all right, who was this? This is Trey Smith, right?
Trey Smith. This reminds me of last year or the year before with the Detroit Lions and Jackson.
Interesting. I don't know that they're gonna tag him at $23 million. I feel like they're gonna let him test free agency. All right, Las Vegas Raiders. Look, they have a ton of money, but they don't really have a team that's worthy of tagging anybody right now. They're in rebuild mode, complete rebuild mode. I can't imagine that they're not going to try to rip it back a little bit and try to address the entire team. I think that, they're armed with the second most projected cap space. The Raiders are well positioned to not only retain their key free agents, but also attack the open market for a much needed injection of talent. They are talent strapped. Malcolm Kuntz, Trevin Morig, and Robert Spillane are all profile names for the new GM, John Spidek. He may look to retain these guys, but I doubt it's going to take a franchise tag. Chargers, they're not looking to tag anybody. Matter of fact, they're probably willing to lose Khalil Mack. Someone that's, I think, probably $18 million a year right now. I don't think that Mack is going to take a significant discount to go anywhere in the NFL. But he is probably going to hit free agency. Restructuring a deal with him could happen. But tagging him, that would be ludicrous, especially at his age. So it doesn't make any sense. The Rams, again, nobody there. They're looking to get rid of Cooper Kupp, possibly getting rid of Matthew Stafford. They're trying to, reshuffle the deck in L.A. They've got a rising star in Puka Nacua. They can build around him in the draft. But they need to find a quarterback of the future very soon. Like, probably this season, if they could find somebody late in the second round, this would be the year to at least bring in some young bodies that can sling the football. The Miami Dolphins, what are they looking to bring in or do?
All right. Safety Javon Holland. So here's our first safety. 2024 PFF grade, 63. His projected franchise tag, $18.321 million. The Dolphins' salary cap constraints and struggles on the field likely mean Holland will enter the free agent market. However, his strong performance across his first 3 seasons will garner significant interest from teams desperate for secondary help. In 2023, Holland generated an 89.9 PFF coverage grade, ranking 3rd among safeties. That could motivate Miami to designate Holland with a transition or non-exclusive tag, as the safety is projected to earn more than $19.5 million annually, putting him in line with the $18.3 million tag value.
So this is exactly got to take this thing out for a second. This is exactly what I've been talking about with Kirby Joseph. So when you look at Kirby Joseph's future as a Detroit Lion, he is going to get paid. And the fact that Javon Holland is set to make more than $19.5 million as a third best safety in 2024, an 89.9 PFF coverage grade, stellar season. The tag value of $18.321 million, I think, is the floor for Kirby Joseph's new contract. I don't see Kirby taking a team-friendly deal. I think that he's going to want to get paid for his services, and any agent of Kirby Joseph is advising him of that. So he is not going to sign a cheap deal with the Lions. Probably won't play this year if he doesn't get a new deal, and that's why I feel that Kirby Joseph may be on the trade block for no other reason than it makes sense to cash in when, you know, your players are playing at a high rate and their value is at the very tippy top. It's time to cash in on Kirby Joseph and hopefully get a second-round pick. But as far as Javon Holland goes, again, if you're looking at bringing in a top-tier safety, this is how much it's going to cost. I just can't see the Lions doing something like that, and I can't see the Dolphins strapping themselves even further than what they are already. Now, for the Minnesota Vikings, they only have one major move to make this year. One major move, in my opinion, and that is Sam Darnold or no Sam Darnold. If they wanted to tag him at $39.6 million this year, I think that that's a deal, right? Don't pay the dude $50+ million. Tag him. Getting a quarterback at $40 million is now a deal in the NFL. So I feel like this is probably going to happen if they decide that maybe they want to retain Sam Darnold this season, maybe duel it out with J.J. McCarthy. They still have Daniel Jones on the roster. I don't know what Daniel Jones has left for contract. I don't know if he's at the end of his rope with his contract situation in Minnesota, but if he's not, I can't imagine that they think that Daniel Jones is the answer, especially above JJ. He'd be a great backup, but let all three of them duel it out this summer. And if you pay $40 million for Sam Darnold, you pay $40 million. At least you know then if something happens with JJ and he can't go the distance, doesn't work out, you have Sam Darnold to step in. That's a funny situation to be in. It's a situation I would hate to be in as a GM. What do you think about the Viking situation here?
Yeah, because they're saying a projected contract for Sam Darnold would be 3 years, $123 million, so $41.25 million per year. Tagging him, you'd get him for cheaper than what you could sign him for 3 years. And I don't think that Sam Darnold fits into their 3-year plan. I really think they wanted J.J. McCarthy to start last year. I think they thought they were doing a slight rebuild last year, and that's why everybody thought they were only going to win 7 games last year.
Yeah.
That's why I think they might only win 7 games this year, is because they are going to start J.J. McCarthy. Do you really want to pay $40 million for a backup quarterback? That's the question.
No, I don't think that they want to pay $40 million for a backup. I think that if you retain Sam Darnold and you pay him $40 million on a tag, they're expecting him to beat out JJ. They're expecting that. But I think at the same time, it kind of gives them security. If you think that JJ is going to cause the Vikings to have a regressive season, then why would you start him? Right now, last year, had they started J.J. McCarthy and he had not been injured, we would have never seen this season from Sam Darnold. So things have a funny way of working out. And I think now, you look at the genius of the Minnesota Vikings and what they did, stacking quarterbacks, and Sam Darnold just happened to work out, right? He happened to have one of the best career years of his career. I projected that it was going to happen. It happened. And why would you walk away from that? $40 million is a deal. Run it back in 2025. I'm not saying that I want him to do this, but I think that it would be wise to. Let JJ sit and develop for yet another season. If Sam Darnold regresses, you're throwing JJ in and you're trading Sam Darnold at the trade deadline. A done deal. I don't think that there's a whole lot of teams out there that wouldn't pay $40 million for Sam Darnold, or, essentially at the trade deadline, what could potentially be about $20 million. So tag them and trade them, or tag them and let them duel it out this summer with JJ. The Patriots, they don't have anybody, but they are armed with $112 million in effective cap space. Mike Vrabel, man, he has a very good opportunity here in New England to do a lot with this team. We'll see maybe a resurgence from the Patriots over the next couple of seasons. Saints, Giants, Jets, nobody that they're looking at tagging. Eagles, obviously, are in a funny situation. They're going to try to retain as much of their team as possible, but their team is projected to hover around $14 million in effective cap space this offseason. It's not enough. Pittsburgh Steelers, San Francisco 49ers, and the Seattle Seahawks, none. They're not looking to tag anybody. Julian Love for the Seahawks, securing him with a 3-year, $33 million extension last summer means that the Seahawks really don't have a pressing need at this moment. The 49ers, obviously, they have several key contributors in Charvarius Ward, Dre Greenlaw, and Talona Hufanga, all whom rank in the top 25 of PFF's free agent list. We'll see if any of them are going to come back on a significant one-year deal. Tampa, Tennessee, not looking. And lastly, Washington. What is Washington looking to do this season?
So the Commanders are poised to leave their mark on free agency, currently holding the third most cap space in the NFL, with names like Bobby Wagner, Dante Fowler, Jeremy Chin, and Zach Ertz slated for free agency. Washington will likely earn some of that cap space to retain its key contributors, but using the franchise tag to do so wouldn't make sense due to the cost.
And I would agree. And we're going to be right back here with some more news and notes from around the league. That is your top 32 teams tag situations for 2025 as it currently sits right now. We'll be right back. Is here and you want the latest news and rumors on your Detroit Lions. Head to sportspider.com. That's sports, SPYDER.com, where you can get your Lions news and all your sports in one place. Man, this site is packed with your favorite podcasts, live news, articles from local writers, and insiders, all updating in real time. Not just the Lions, every major sports team, including MMA, UFC, and so much more. Don't want to waste time searching? Sign up for free. Create your ultimate sports news hub. You control what hits your feed at SportsSpider, your number one source for all your sports. Visit SportSpider.com today, right after the show. Okay, so what do we miss here in NFL news? I don't think that there's really anything else going on that we haven't talked about. We've talked about Jair. We talked about Richie Incognito, the top 32 for tags. And I think what really is up next is, well, let's talk about one more team for just a moment. Let's talk about the Lions.
Yeah.
Eric, when is the last time the Detroit Lions used the franchise tag?
Well, that's a question I wanted to ask to the chat. When is the last time the Detroit Lions used the franchise tag? And I don't want you to use the Google machine. We've only used it a few times. And for bonus points, tell me who the players were and how many times we've used the franchise tag in franchise history. It is going to surprise you when I tell you just exactly how many times the Detroit Lions have used the tag. All right. The Lions notably did not use the franchise tag on wide receiver Kenny Golladay in 2021, which has proven to be a very wise move. They have actually only used the franchise tag 4 times in the history of the NFL. And they did so in 2006 for Jeff Backus, in 2007 for Corey Redding, in 2012 for Cliff Averill, and then in 2018 for defensive end Ziggy Ansah. So they've used it twice on defensive edge, once on a defensive lineman, and then once on an offensive tackle. So the Detroit Lions in their whole entire history have only ever used the tag 4 times. That's it, 4 times. So it is not surprising to me that this year there's really no one that the Detroit Lions are going to want to tag or need to tag. I just think that's kind of a situation that was a Matt Millen type of move. That wasn't something that I think Brad Holmes would now do. Brad Holmes just uses his brain a little bit more than Matt Millen did. I think Matt Millen would push the can so far down the road that when it came time to pay his best players, he couldn't get a contract done. Well, Brad doesn't do that. He gets on top of it before it becomes a problem, and he tries to get ahead of the curve. That's why signing people like Penei Sewell, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Montgomery, and Goff to contracts early before they're really due for a contract gets ahead of it so that this doesn't become a problem and you don't have to tag players in future years. And it's a distraction that a team doesn't need. And for the morale and the outlook for the team period is so much better when you're not having this tag looming over your shoulder. If you guys understand what I mean, that he takes care of our own. And now people know if you get drafted by the Lions, or if you come here as a free agent, if you work your butt off and you have put some good seasons together, Brad Holmes is going to take care of you. And if they can't afford to take care of you, then they're going to trade you somewhere where someone can take care of you. So if you do your job, that's all that matters. The Lions are going to take care of you.
So for me, I think you mentioned a good term here, and that is distraction. And I think that when you look at, a Detroit Lions team that is looking to continue to grow, but also retain its core pieces, you're exactly right. I mean, Brad Holmes did it the right way. He got in front of these contracts last year. Some say that maybe a Lee McNeil was done a little bit early. Some say that Brad Holmes maybe overpaid, for Amon-Ra St. Brown. But then when you look at the deal a year later, you're going to see where the new contracts for some of these wide receivers are going to be far beyond what Amon-Ra St. Brown was paid. But keeping your core together is important. And I think that when you have a distraction on the team with contract talk, it never finishes in the team's favor, ever. The distractions are too much. Players sitting out causes a rift in the locker room. Oftentimes they're not able to practice, or they decide not to show up to practice. It can hurt, the offense more so than the defense, because I think the offense is so predicated on, having that continuity, but also the timing, right? On the defensive side of the football, it's not so much about timing as it is just knowing your assignment. So I think it's great that Brad Holmes is able to manufacture, the franchise tag by not using it, right? And he's able to put it into contracts. It's interesting that the Ziggy Ansah was on this report, and I'm not going to try to liken Ziggy to Broderick Martin, but if you remember when Ziggy came into the NFL, he was a big-time project. He was raw. I think he only played 3 years of football his entire career. He came from somewhere, I think was it in Africa?
Zimbabwe, Africa, I think.
Something where you played soccer too. So the fact that he was that raw coming into the Lions organization turned out to be a pretty decent defensive end in the NFL. Broderick Martin, I'm not going to say that they're even close, but when you look at a guy like Broderick and his raw ability, the things that you can't teach are size, right? And Ziggy had it. Ziggy had some intangibles. He definitely had the agility. Broderick has some things that you're not going to find all the time in the NFL. Deone Walker coming into this year's draft is exact size comparison to Broderick Martin. So it'll be interesting to see where Deone Walker's going to go. But using the franchise tag on Ziggy, I love Ziggy, man. I loved his work. I was sad to see him go. But
me too.
Yeah, Brad gets it right. I don't ever see him having to use a franchise tag unless he's looking at temporarily tagging somebody to trade and do something before the draft just to secure at least the opportunity to have some rights over that individual. Up next is Mina Kimes. So Mina Kimes said that the Lions obviously a little bit concerning here for the Lions, losing Ben Johnson. Now, I know we've talked about Ben quite a bit, or Benedict Johnson, whatever you want to refer to him as. But Mina Kimes said that losing Ben Johnson is concerning. Quite simply, that the Detroit Lions are entering the 2025 NFL season with, an all-new coaching staff. We know that, right? We've got John Morton and Shaw and others, right? We've replaced about 8 coaches this year. But why does Mina Kimes think that it's concerning that we're going to have to reinvent the wheel on the offense? This doesn't make any sense to me. So let me go into her quote where it says, "The loss of Ben Johnson concerns me. It's easy to look at this Lions offense, which, by the way, they're not losing many players. Kevin Zeitler is a free agent, Dan Skipper, Tim Patrick, but for the most part, they're running it back. So you could look at them and say, cool, just hit copy, paste, you'll be fine." That's what the Philadelphia Eagles did in 2023, and we remember how that went. Defenses in the NFL are constantly evolving. You have to evolve in response to that. I think for Detroit, it would be a mistake to think that this offense can look exactly like it did with Ben Johnson. Before I give my 2 cents, Eric, do you think it was a mistake? Are you concerned? Obviously we didn't have a choice. Ben was gone. But do you think that or are you concerned that the Lions are going to have difficulty on the offense this year?
Not at all. Listen, this misconception that this offense was all 100% Ben Johnson is a bunch of crap. And these people that think Dan Campbell is just a meathead will keep thinking that way. Keep thinking that way. This was Dan Campbell's offense, and he gave it to Ben Johnson. And then Ben Johnson took and ran with it. He's the one, yes, that may have came up with some of these trick plays, but it's not all about trick plays in the NFL. You also need someone that's willing to run it on 3rd and 1 from your own 17 in a playoff game. And I think that's what we found this year in Johnny Morton. And we're going to talk a little bit later. Johnny Morton is going to be calling plays for the Detroit Lions. It's not going to be just Dan Campbell. So you are going to see some different stuff this year. You are going to see things differently. They're going to build this around Jared Goff. This isn't going to be just the Johnny Morton show. This isn't going to be just the Dan Campbell show. They're all going to work together. They're going to make this thing work. I don't see us skipping a beat. Look what the Philadelphia Eagles just did. They just had a coordinator for 1 season in Kellen Moore. 1 season he came in and they won a Super Bowl. So if they can do it, why can't the Detroit Lions do it?
Yeah, so Mina went on to say that, the new offensive coordinator, John Morton, quote, new offensive coordinator, John Morton, you don't want him to obviously deviate too much from the proven formula, and the talent is the talent. But he also has to show that sort of adjustment in games and over the course of the season for this offense to continue what it's been, end quote. So here's my take. I'm not concerned. Number one, this has always been a Dan Campbell-led offense. This was his baby. Dan Campbell designed a large majority of what this offense does. He was calling plays, I think it was through week 8 or 9 or 10 of 2022, and then he handed it over to Ben Johnson. So Ben Johnson had, 2 successful seasons with the Lions, but a lot of this was developed, again, by Jared Goff, Ben Johnson, but mostly Dan Campbell. And the 2 common denominators are still here. Dan Campbell, Jared Goff. So I don't think that much is going to change. If anything, I think that we're going to have a better opportunity to maintain games, because Mina Kimes went in to say this as well. Ryan Clark went in to say this about the Lions, and I do agree with some of this, and I'm going to explain why I feel like the Lions offense is going to be just fine. So Ryan Clark, quote, he says, that's why you have to win it when you have the opportunity. When you're up on the San Francisco 49ers in the NFC Championship in the second half, you have to finish when you have the Washington Commanders on your home field and you're the number 1 overall seed in the NFC. You have to find a way to win because now you've lost both coordinators who must be great leaders of men as well, end quote. So what effect does this have, on the team? How do your players respond? And I think that it's minimal effect. I mean, yeah, things are going to be different, but I think for John Morton, what we know about his past, and Shaw, what we know about his past as well, is that Morton loves to run the football. And he loves play action. He uses the screen game. So we're going to see some things that are a little bit different in 2025, but these are the things that I've been waiting for. We brought in Jahmyr Gibbs at pick number 12 2 seasons ago, and we saw all of this work in training camp. We read all of these reports during training camp in 2023 that Jahmyr Gibbs was going to be split out wide. He was going to be tight in the slot. He was going to be utilized in the pass game, and we just didn't see it. Not enough. So I think that this year we're going to see Gibbs in a more fluid role where he's not just running the football. We're probably going to see Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery on the field at the same time a little bit more this season. So you put Gibbs out in the slot, you put him on the other side, you put Sam Laporta in tight. That's a hell of an offense, especially with Montgomery, the bowling ball behind Jared Goff. He has 3 quick options, and he still has Montgomery that he can do something with. I think that we're going to see a very fluid offense here in 2025. I think we're going to utilize the screen game a lot more than we have in seasons past. And I think that when the running game is working, we're not going to go away from it. I mean, look, again, to your point, what did the Eagles do? They didn't go away from the run game when it didn't work at all in the Super Bowl. They kept pounding the rock. And again, that's exactly what I said in the pregame before the Super Bowl. I said that you're going to have to figure out a way to stop Saquon, but you don't stop running the football. You have to continue to keep the defense honest. And that's what the Eagles did, and it opened up play action. It opened up some deep shots, and the Eagles took advantage of everything. So if anything, I think we're going to see growth because you're going to have a high-level offensive coordinator that has an extreme amount of not only familiarity with how this offense was designed when he was here with us last, but he's also going to have fresh eyes now. He's going to get to go look at our tape, and he's going to say, you know what? I see what Ben was doing here, but I would have done something different. Yeah, in the NFC Championship game, that was more of a defensive letdown than it was an offensive letdown. But why did we get shut out in the second half, where we could hardly score points? So you have to be able to deviate from your plan. You have to be able to make, changes on the field, and you can't be afraid to do it. And I think that for whatever reason, Ben Johnson got stuck. And when he was stuck, he would get cute. And when he would get cute, we start doing these, wild plays. Some work, some didn't. Obviously, those are crowd favorites. But you don't want to be a crowd favorite. You want to win the football game. I could care less that they did a flea flicker and a reverse on the same play. Right? Not saying that happened, but you get what I'm saying. Like, all the cuteness put us in trouble at times, and it doesn't always work. We have enough problems with Dan Campbell always going for it on 4th down at some positions during the game that just don't make a whole lot of sense. Some win, some lose. Some have been game changers. Some have won us football games. But I think, again, getting back to the root of this topic here, this offense is going to have fresh eyes. And I think that is going to lend to even more growth to this offense. We're going to see more fluidity out of the backfield into the passing game. And then, of course, we have the passing game that has been highly developed already. So, if anything, I think that this is a perfect opportunity headed into year 5, new terminology, new offense, new style of play calling. I think we'll probably start the season 5 or 6-0. And that's because nobody is going to have a clue as to what we're doing. And I don't even care who the opponent is in the first 5 or 6 games. I don't think that anyone's going to be able to stop us. So I'll turn it over to you to see what you think.
All right. I want you to rewind back to the second game of the season. And it was a game we played against the Tampa Bay Bucks, in a game that we should have won. But if you remember, Jared Goff was asked to throw the ball over 40 times. And it just didn't work. I think that just like Aaron Glenn was stubborn sometimes, I think that Ben Johnson was stubborn sometimes. And I think Ben Johnson preferred the pass over the run 9 out of 10 times. And I think having a more balanced attack and using this amazing run game to our advantage would set the league on fire, and then if we have an offensive coordinator that's not going to play, I'm not going to say not play favorites, but when you have a hot hand in Jahmyr Gibbs and you have an injured coming off an MCL David Montgomery, you don't start David Montgomery. I know you're trying to soften up the defense, but you have to stick with the hot hand. And I think that maybe our new offensive coordinator, John Morton, I think maybe he'll see things a little more clearly with the run game than what Ben Johnson did. He's going to learn from Ben Johnson's mistakes without even having to be here for it.
I think that's the key, right? You have to be able to evolve. Last year, my take on this team and this season was evolution, and watching the evolution of this team over 4 seasons, or what was 3 seasons, culminating in to a head in the 4th season. Where were we going to be different? And I think that we made some big strides in areas. And matter of fact, Ryan Clark even went in to talk about Calvin Shepard for a moment. And this is not really a topic about Ben Johnson and the offense, but just kind of sticking with evolution. And now we have Calvin Shepard as our defensive coordinator. He's also learning from what Aaron Glenn did wrong and also what Aaron Glenn did right. So, again, to what effect does that have when you have, good leaders of men? And how do your players respond? But the Lions, they had a lot of injuries last year, right? Totally decimated the defense. How healthy are they going to be in 2025? How much can they play to their potential? Can Calvin Shepard find a way to get the rush, back with a 4-man rush, with Aleem McNeil healthy, with Aiden Hutchinson healthy? That is a big question. Are they going to find an edge rusher to pair on the opposite side of Aiden that is going to be this top-tier talent? Or are they going to stick to what they've been doing and develop somebody through the draft and then bring in a mid-tier guy, through free agency, potentially just retain Za'Darius, which I think it's a must. You have to retain Za'Darius at this point. What are they going to be able to do, and how are they going to be different? Well, I think that Calvin Shepard was able to produce in a defense that was decimated. He lost all of his linebackers but one, Jack Campbell. So there was all new linebackers in, just like there was all new defensive linemen in. DJ Reader was like the only staple after week 2 on the defensive line. Aleem McNeil was playing at an elite level through like the first 12 weeks of the season until he went down with injury. What was that, weeks, 14 or so. So we have some good pieces, right? We have some really good pieces. The question is, what injuries are going to heal up? Are they going to be the same player in 2025? How is Brad going to be prepared? If there's one criticism that I would say that I could levy against Brad Holmes, it's not so much the defense in addressing personnel differently. It's now that you went through what you went through, I think that you do have to look at it from the standpoint of, okay, if this were to happen again, what could I have done different that would have worked? I don't think taking a top tier edge rusher in last year's offseason or in, at the trade deadline, because they just weren't available anyway. Anyone that's saying that Brad made a huge mistake because he didn't bring somebody in, they weren't even available. You're not going to give away multiple first-round picks in the future of your team to bring somebody in, but they have to be available. None of them were available. Brad said that at the press conference. But more importantly, it's continue to develop the pipeline. And I think that sometimes you have to double down. We saw it with the cornerback last year. I think that Brad needs to double down in this draft, which does match up to the roster roulette, for year 5. You have to take a defensive tackle. You have to take an edge rusher in this draft because you need that depth to grow with you. And if he doesn't do it, I think it's a mistake. But it's not about addressing the pass rush per se, because the interior pass rush clearly has been the winner this last season. I mean, the Eagles' interior pass rush was the biggest reason why they win that game, and the biggest reason why their defense was so good in 2024. The interior pass rush was huge, and it's been explained by many other talking heads other than myself that get paid millions of dollars a year to talk about it. The interior pass rush helped the back end. The back end helped the interior pass rush. And those two combined together helps your edge rushers. So I think that Brad Holmes has to look at this standpoint, or look at this defense from the standpoint of what worked the best last season. How can we capitalize on that in 25 and our future at the same time? Double down as much as you can. Linebacker, interior and exterior defensive linemen in 2025 has to be absolute must, even over offensive line. It's an absolute must this season that you fill that pipeline with young players that can be significant contributors in 25 and 26. So that's really my take. And I do have a video coming out later talking about some of these same things. I do have a big segment that I did prepare. We're probably not going to get to it today. Maybe we'll get to it tomorrow. But I kind of started going through all of the weeks last year and what happened. You know, week by week by week, what were they saying about the Lions defensive line? What were they saying about our defense overall? And I think that you'll be shocked. Matter of fact, I know you're going to be shocked because of all the other BS that is spewed all over YouTube. To me, it's just unintelligent dribble that when you actually go back and look at what we did and you look at what Aleem McNeil and DJ Reader were able to do, I mean, they are playing completely out of their minds. Like, they're playing exceptionally well. And even with all the injuries, we were still a top-rated defense. But I'm going to save that bigger segment so that we can actually have an intelligent conversation about it. So what's up next here for Detroit Lions news? So John Morton, we know, is going to call plays. Why don't we just go there? Because I think that ties right into this Mina Kimes story.
And it does. So the new Detroit Lions offensive coordinator, John Morton, didn't hesitate in confirming that he will be the team's play caller in 2025. Morton revealed the news during an interview with Fox 2 that aired on Monday. There was some speculation as to whether it would be him or head coach Dan Campbell that would take on the duties. When Ben Johnson was promoted in 2022, Campbell waited until the start of the regular season to officially announce who the play caller would be. A Michigan native who was previously coached with the organization, Morton expressed gratitude for getting a second opportunity to serve as an offensive coordinator in the NFL. His previous chance came with the New York Jets in 2017 and lasted just one season. After spending time as an offensive Pete, I can't talk today. As an
Got a fat tongue today.
Offensive assistant with Detroit in 2022, Morton served as the passing game coordinator for the Denver Broncos for the last two seasons. Now he's returning home to replace Johnson as the architect of the Detroit offense. And he went on to say, I think it's an unbelievable opportunity just to get another chance. Calling plays for the first time at the Jets, that was an experience. I've learned from that. But just being here at home, I grew up here. Family's still here. I understand what it takes. I've seen the ups, a lot of downs. Barry Sanders. I grew up a Barry Sanders fan, but it's really exciting for this opportunity. You don't get too many of them, and I'm ready. See, he's saying right there, he learned from his time with the Jets. He's learned from his time with the Broncos, and he learned from his time with the Detroit Lions. I'm telling you right now, this guy is going to surprise Mina Kimes and all of those people that thought the Lions aren't going to hit the ground running this year. The Lions are going to surprise a lot of people this year.
To me, I'm not going to be surprised, right? I know that there's going to be some, and I know what you're saying. I think that there's some doubters that are going to be surprised, but I think, Eric, both you and I, we're not doubting. This isn't all rose water and rainbows, right? This is legit conversation about what's coming next for the Detroit Lions. And I'm not going to be surprised one bit when they do hit the ground running. But I think that you have to hit this season early. And I think that you have to set a precedent and a standard right away in rookie minicamp. I think that, your first OTAs, your first option when you've got guys back on the field this spring, you have to set the precedent that, look, no excuses. We don't care that we lost 2 coordinators. We don't care that we lost 7 assistants or whatever it's been now. We are the team. We're here. We're going to get the work done. But we're going to set the precedent like Dan Campbell does every single season. He's going to start with some sort of, motto of the year. I don't even know what it's going to be. I guess if I go back and listen to the press conference to end the season, I bet you that motto is in there somewhere, or the moniker for the season, whatever you want to call it. I guarantee it's in there. You have to hit the ground running, and you have to do a lot of work in the offseason to make sure that that's even possible. So I think that Dan and John, and the rest of the guys, they're in the lab, man. They're getting the work done now so that when they get through the draft and they figure out what they need, that they can go into rookie minicamp and OTAs and they can just get it hammered. It's time for the Lions to take that next step in 2025. We have done some incredible things. And if you think that the last 2 seasons have been a failure, I would ask you, where were you the previous 40 seasons? Because those were failures, right? Almost every single one of them was a failure, minus the couple of times that we made it into the playoffs. This is a different team. It's a different culture. It's a different identity. It's just different in Detroit. And I think that this is going to be the spark that we need, which is something new. Now, I've always said that, yes, continuity is everything. Keeping your coaches together is everything. And we were lucky to have that for 4 seasons. It's not, I don't think it's going to impact this team that has a good core. And again, that speaks to Brad Holmes. He's given us a very good core of leaders and captains on this squad that are not going to accept anything but success. If you don't bring in the guys that you do and set the identity and develop the culture the way that they have over the previous 4 seasons, I would say that, yeah, this season could be a letdown then, because maybe we're not developed enough. Maybe we don't have the right pieces in place. Absolutely we do. So I think now it's time to push the gas pedal. How about Tim Patrick? So there's been some talk that Tim Patrick may not be back. Look, I absolutely enjoyed Tim Patrick this season. I think that he probably wanted to do more. Obviously, there wasn't a ton of opportunity for him to do more because we have so many playmakers. And we had 4 guys that had over 1,000 yards this season. And when you're on an offense that is that efficient, it's kind of hard to make a lot of plays. But this dude has battled. All right, he battled back from some pretty serious injuries. And I remember the one thing I said about Tim that I was really looking forward to, just based on his history, was his hands. The guy doesn't drop balls. He really doesn't. I think he had 1 drop ball last year, and you could just you could see it all over his face, man. He was upset. But he is an unrestricted free agent. He signed a $1.2 million deal last year as a prove-it deal. And then he was traded, to the Lions. Was he traded to the Lions, or did we bring him in free agency?
We took him off the practice squad, I thought.
Maybe that's what we did. We took him off the practice squad. So I had a brain fart there. Can you bring him back again on such a cheap deal? I don't know. His market value, according to Spotrac Premium, is $1.7 million. I think that this guy is one of those glue guys that you would love to have on your team. And it speaks to his resiliency and his character and his battle through adversity is to the reason why he is such a good fit in Detroit. He kicked ass last year, man. I mean, coming back from what he went through, he really had a great season, in my opinion. Yeah, it's not record-breaking numbers, right? It's not the best that he can do. He can do a hell of a lot better. But I think that this is a guy you want to bring back. So, look, I'm telling Brad Holmes right now, you cannot lose this guy. You just can't. You have to have him on this squad. Doesn't mean that you can't bring in somebody else through the draft or through free agency. But if we set, the stage with Amon-Ra St. Brown, J-Mo is now your number 2. Tim Patrick as your number 3. Khalif Raymond as your number 4. I think you have room to bring in, a third or fourth round wide receiver who could be your number 6, even though I don't think the Lions are going to keep 6. I wish they would. But I think that's why Jahmyr Gibbs is going to get more play in the passing game. I think that you have to, have another weapon on the outside. And I think that maybe this even leaves the door open for the Lions to bring in another running back if we lose Craig Reynolds. So I guess it depends on what happens at running back as to whether or not they're going to draft a receiver this year. But I think it's time. I think you need to bring in another big body. And I think you need to keep Tim Patrick around to kind of train the rook and kind of show him the ropes. He's a perfect guy to kind of train up your new guys. But let me kind of read what Riley was talking about. So the Lions bringing in Tim Patrick last offseason proved to be a very good move. I would agree with that. It obviously helped the team this last season at key points. It seemed like every time he caught a ball, Eric, like it was a first down. It was a big, it was a big target catch. But after, the fear of losing Josh Reynolds, I think that Lions fans did not expect Tim Patrick to fill that void. And he absolutely panned out about as well as he could have been reasonably expected. Quote here by Rich Cimini from ESPN, where he says, one free agent to watch for the Jets is Tim Patrick of the Detroit Lions. An obvious connection to Aaron Glenn and offensive coordinator Tanner Engstrand. I would hate to see Tim go to New York. I really would. But if they're willing to overpay, he might. The question would be this. Eric, would you like to see Tim Patrick back and return for this season? And do you agree that the Jets would be a suitor for him if the Lions somehow lose out in the free agency war, even with uncertainty at quarterback in New York? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think they would be interested, but if I was Brad Holmes, I offer him a 2-year deal, $3 million a year with some really cool incentives. And they would all be to be better than what he was this year, because I think in year 2, he's going to do even more. And barring injury, that's the guy we need. And what you do is you draft somebody. I don't care if it's the 2nd round, 3rd round, 4th round. You find another big bodied receiver, kind of like Green, or maybe you bring Green back. I mean, he's a free agent as well. And we ended up giving him an injury settlement and letting him go during the season. And he was really starting to come on, but he got hurt in the preseason and off he goes. So I don't know what you do with the next receiver, but you got to bring someone in that's big bodied that can learn the Tim Patrick role. Keep the roster roulette moving.
That's right, man. You got to keep throwing those dice. Big shout out to the chat. I apologize. We have not paid attention to you guys today. I just want to say that I appreciate John Desage, J-Rod, Kevin, Derek, Trace, Steve, Roxanne, Warner U of M Dad, Full Slate Farms, Derek Lewis, Jay-Z, John Rittman.
Can I say something real quick?
Everyone that's been kind of hanging out with us all morning. We haven't really paid attention. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, Derek Lewis, he says, I used to go to the W show sports and watching this time slot in the morning. I hated their off-topic antics, so I'm glad I found this channel. Just thought I would throw that out there. And that's exactly how I found Will a year ago, because I got sick of watching that show. And then they'd always go into Pistons and Red Wings and Tigers. Dude, I want to listen to Detroit Lions football 365 a year. I am not a sports fan. I am a football fan. I used to be into all the other sports, but I just can't anymore. All my love and passion is for the Detroit Lions. So if a podcast talks about anything other than the Lions in long content, I can't do it. I can't sit and talk through something, because every hobby and every sport is like speaking its own language. They have their own terms. They have their own players. Everything's different, right? So for me to basically learn another language for basketball or baseball or hockey, I'm not putting in the time to do it. I am football all the way in Detroit Lions. I don't even watch college football except for 1 or 2 games a year.
It's interesting you said language. I guess I never thought about it that way of having to learn the language of another team. See, I was like a 5-sport athlete, so I obviously had to learn all the different languages, and I was pretty fluent in all of them. From golf to football to baseball, which baseball was my best sport, golf my second. But I played them all. I was a little bit undersized. It's kind of weird. I didn't hit my major growth spurt until after my senior year, and then playing some semi-pro baseball and whatnot through my young adulthood. I loved it, man, until my pelvis was shattered. Sliding into second, it kind of ruined my career. But I never thought about having to learn a different language. That's an interesting take. As far as this channel goes, look, it's not all Detroit Lions. It's Detroit Lions centric, especially during the off season. I mean, we have to talk about the NFL because I'm sure we could find topics to fill 2 hours or even 3 hours about the Lions, but I think it kind of gets redundant. We're trying to shape and mold this into giving you a well-rounded NFL look. Different purviews, perspectives from everybody, and then bringing like Riley in. He does things a little bit different. He'll be doing some interviews. We'll bringing in multiple different types of people, and hopefully some more interviews this year. So hopefully as we grow and our staff of hosts grow, we'll be able to give you some well-rounded knowledge of just about every team in the NFL. That's the goal. All right, so we were just talking about Tim Patrick for a moment, right? And then you had mentioned something about, well, maybe we need, however we address the draft. And when I look at the draft, I think that this draft is pretty deep for wide receivers. But if I'm going to throw out a couple of names that I've actually watched tape on that I do like, there's Trey Harris out of Ole Miss. Ole Miss has multiple guys in this draft. There's Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State. I do like his body of work. And we're talking about guys that are, I think Trey Harris is 6'3". I think Higgins is 6'4". Both those guys probably run, in the low 4.5s. So they're not blazing fast, but I don't think you need to be blazing fast to be successful. You have Savion Williams, who is just, massive. The dude should be playing. Hell, he should probably be an edge rusher, to be honest with you. He's 6'5", 225, and you could probably add 20 pounds to his frame easily because of his wingspan. And I think that I'm surprised he's not an edge rusher. But anyway, he's a massive target on the outside. But beyond them, I think you have Kyron Lacey out of LSU. He's only 6'2", but he plays bigger than that. You have Pat Bryant out of Illinois. He's 6'3". Dante Thornton Jr., he's 6'5". Big dude. He runs a 4.43. He's fun to watch. Who else? I think that's really it. And I think that you can probably get the majority of those guys in the late second and the third round. You'll be able to get some of those guys. So if Brad Holmes brings a wide receiver in this year, I'm expecting it to be a mid-round, not super early. Fill the hopper, man. It's roster roulette. You've got to fill the hopper. So if we do lose Tim Patrick, I think that we're definitely drafting a wide receiver. Next up, let's talk about Cooper Kupp for a moment.
Yeah,
I'm not real high on this topic as far as what this post is all about or what they're trying to say, the New York Post. Saying that the odds right now for Cooper Kupp is with the Detroit Lions. That the Lions are like the odds-on favorite to land this dude. I think that's a giant mistake. I respect the connection that he has with Jared Goff. I could understand why people would think the Lions would be the odds-on favorite just because of that connection. But his cap, and I mean, it's way too much money. And what he's going to want on the free agent market, way too much money. He has a $29.78 million cap hit. There's no way that you can pay what you're paying Amon-Ra St. Brown this year and Cooper Kupp. It just doesn't make any sense. You're talking almost 11% of the cap. And if you want to bring in some defensive help, you can't bring in Cooper Kupp. There's just no way. It doesn't make any sense to me. I get, that people are writing things for clicks. That's what this whole game is about, selling headlines. Ask Brett Holmes. But when the news broke that Cooper Kupp was going to be moved this offseason, the Lions were a team that many quickly linked as being a possible fit. Players in Kupp situation typically want to be moved to a place that gives them a chance to win. The Lions obviously give them that opportunity. The Lions obviously remain to be a competitive team in 2025 and a Super Bowl contender in 2025. There's also familiarity with Jared Goff. And this quote by, not sure who wrote it now. Must be, get these screens out of my face. This quote by Eric Richter. Eric Richter says this. He says, the Denver Broncos are favored to trade up for Kupp, according to odds you can bet on through DraftKings Sportsbook, coming in at a plus 450. But the Lions have received considerable action from bettors as Kupp opened as a plus 800 and is now down to a plus 550. Kupp has a massive contract with a $29.78 million cap hit, and he takes up to 10.78% of the overall salary cap a team is allotted. Any acquiring team would need to have significant salary cap space as Kupp appears unwilling to renegotiate his deal. What I would say here is, knowing the history of the Rams and what they did with Jared Goff, and I believe they paid some of Jared Goff's contract to come to the Lions, if memory serves me correct, they'd probably be willing to do the same thing here with Cooper Kupp. They'd probably be willing to pay down some of his contract before the trade. And then that would help. So, you know what? If you bring in Cooper Kupp at $15 million, I wouldn't be mad. But you bring him in for one penny more than that, doesn't make any sense, especially when you look at the fact that we need a vet corner. We definitely need at least a high second tier defensive tackle or edge rusher, depending on what we do in the draft. But we won't know what we're doing in the draft until after we get through free agency. So what are your thoughts on Cooper Kupp?
I just don't know where he would fit.
He's another Amon-Ra St. Brown.
That's what I mean. So where are you going to put him? Are you going to put two Amon-Ra St. Browns on the field at the same time?
I mean,
they can't both run the same route from the same position, so I just don't know how he would fit overall. I mean, to me, this is fantasy land. This is it's out there. I think a team like the Denver Broncos would be a better fit for him, where you get a fresh start with a second year quarterback that had a pretty good season last year for a rookie. I just don't think. I think the whole reason that people are writing about this is because Goff and Cooper Kupp originally had that Goff Amon-Ra type of relationship with each other in the league, where they came up together and they exploded together. Kupp's biggest years were with Jared Goff. So why wouldn't he want to go back and be with his former quarterback where he had so much success?
Yeah, I mean, all that stuff, the narratives, it all makes sense. Now, Amon-Ra St. Brown is only getting paid, we'll just call it $14 million this year. So is there room on the wide receiver ratio to cap? Maybe. When I break down where the Lions are probably going to be looking to go in free agency, it does revolve around the ratio. And if you look at every team out there, matter of fact, here, I'll just kind of pull it up. We'll do it a little bit live. If this will take me just a second to actually get into it. Where is it? Positional spending. So when you look at positional spending, wide receivers are the number one expense on an NFL football franchise, or for an NFL football franchise. Tackle is number 2. Cornerback is number 3. Quarterback is actually number 4. Defensive end is number 5. Defensive tackle is number 6. And then safety at number 7. Running back, guard, tight end, linebacker, center, outside linebacker, inside linebacker, and then, of course, kicker and punter. I'm not sure how right tackle. I'm not sure how right tackle would be the least. It just doesn't make any sense at all to me. I don't understand that. I think that is a mistake. Let me whittle this down by 2024 here. Let me grab the Lions. So why do they only have 5 positions in here? That doesn't make any sense. I think that Spotrac has some work to do because it's not full. They only have cornerback, tackle, running back, defensive tackle, and guard listed. So I can't even do what I want to do right now with this. I'm gonna have to go to a different format. So I'm gonna hit the hard pass button. I'll have to come back to that tomorrow. Anyway, Cooper Kupp, I don't see it happening. It would have to be a very, 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 very significantly discounted contract to see him come to Detroit. How about history of players available at the 28th pick to round out our last topic of the day? Want to roll with that? Or do you have one that you'd rather do?
Oh, no. So Tim Twentyman put together a list of a look back at players who have been selected 28th overall in recent drafts. In last year's draft, Kansas City selected wide receiver Xavier Worthy with the 28th overall pick. Worthy played in all 17 games, 13 of which he started, and totaled 59 receptions for 638 yards and 6 touchdowns. In 2023, the Cincinnati Bengals selected defensive end Myles Murphy. In his rookie year, Murphy played in all 17 games, but he played in only 13 this year, and his production slipped. The Eagles chose linebacker Nolan Smith 2 picks later, and Smith is a key starter for the Super Bowl champion Eagles. In 2022, the Packers took defensive tackle Devontae Wyatt out of Georgia in the 28th slot. Wyatt has become a nice rotational player, and the Packers are surely happy with their pick although 2 picks later, the Chiefs landed edge rusher George Karlaftis, who has started 44 games in 3 seasons and registered 24.5 sacks and 24 tackles for loss. So once again, the Packers got it wrong.
Yeah, you know what, though? George Karlaftis, he was high on my list in that draft.
Yeah.
I'm still pissed off that the Lions passed up on him. So it's not that I never wanted to see the Lions bring in, edge rusher in the draft. They just went a different direction. So I think that when you look at what the Lions did, early, there's been some comments made that the Lions haven't done anything to address the defensive line or edge or anything. It's simply untrue. I mean, we've gone through the draft picks, right? I'd say in 2021, yeah, you got Penei Sewell, you got Amon-Ra St. Brown, but you also brought in a lot of defensive players. And if I were to bring up the Detroit Lions draft history, I would say that it's fairly even. And so I guess talking about what's available at 28 and what the Lions have done in recent seasons, I want to look back at 21 to start. So we brought in Levi O, Aleem McNeil, Ifeatu Melifonwu, and Derek Barnes. So 4 out of 8 picks did we have that year? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, 4 out of 7 picks were defense. And 2 were defensive line. And then in 2022, we brought in Aiden Hutchinson, Josh Paschal, James Houston, Malcolm Rodriguez. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 3 out of 8 were defensive line. So out of 2 back-to-back years, we had 15 picks. And out of those 15 picks, Aiden, Paschal, James Houston, Levi, Aleem, 5 out of 15. So a third of our picks went to the defense, and not just the defense, defensive line. And then if you want to call the front 7 with the linebackers part of your defensive line, I think that they kind of are. then that means that not 5 out of 15 were taken, but 7 out of 15 draft picks from 21 to 22 were spent on the defensive line, including the linebackers. So to say that Brad Holmes hasn't addressed it doesn't make any sense. Okay, so let's look at his third draft. So 7 out of 15 were defensive line linebackers. Added Jack Campbell, added Broderick Martin. So now 9 out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Out of 23 were now drafted to the defensive line front 7. And then you look at this last draft. Well, we brought in Mekhi Wingo. And then 2 corners. So, and then Sion Vaki, who's technically a safety, who's playing running back right now. So it's not that we haven't addressed. I think what Brad Holmes did was address the depth. And especially with where you're picking, early, he probably could have went and drafted, an extra edge rusher in 22 or 21. But let me remind everybody, especially for the people in the way, way, way back that have hard of hearing. This team was decimated in 2020. And I know I use that word a lot, recently, but we didn't have anybody on this roster. We had a ton of dead cap. We had no money for free agency in 21 and 22. Brad Holmes had to purge this team. Brad Holmes had to make room to bring in some players. That's why with the picks that he had to kind of put a broad-fingered approach and bring in, elements to kind of fill out the entire team. Yeah, he goes BPA more than he does for need, but those first 2 drafts were kind of setting the foundation. And I think we did pretty well. In his third draft, he continued to set the foundation, but he also grabbed some pretty high-profile football players. Sam Laporta was the best rookie tight end in generations until this recent year. Jahmyr Gibbs might be the best running back in the NFL in short order. Brian Branch could end up being an all-pro safety or one of the, here he is, one of the best safeties to play the game very soon. Jack Campbell, he's only grown. He's going to be one of the best linebackers in this league. He's not a liability, I'll tell you that. And then this year, we kind of didn't do a whole lot, but kind of reset the stage a little bit with filling in some major gaps for last year and the future. 2 corners, a project in Giovanni Manu, which again, you're never going to find that size. It's impossible to find that size. Joe Alt is like the only other comparison, and he's bigger than Joe Alt. Mekhi Wingo in the 6th round, huge slip. That dude is going to be an animal in the NFL, especially his second season when he comes back healthy. So when I look at what Brad Holmes has done, and then we talk about who's available at the 28th pick, I am not concerned with who Brad Holmes takes. And to Tim Twentyman's article here, when you look at the players that he's talking about, wide receiver Xavier Worthy, the Chiefs hit big on Xavier. I don't think the Lions need to go offense, but defensive end Myles Murphy out of Clemson. He played 17 games as a rookie. He recorded 3 sacks and 3 tackles. In 13 games this year, he did not record a sack and had just 1 tackle for loss and 4 quarterback hits. So if you're looking at a game changer at pick 28, Myles Murphy was a miss. And I didn't like Myles Murphy anyway. I didn't even have him on my board at all. Nolan Smith, I did have on my board. Absolutely. How about defensive tackle Devonta Wyatt out of Georgia, drafted by Green Bay? Well, let's see. On the defensive line, the Green Bay's defensive line recorded 5.5 and 5 sacks, respectively, in the last 2 seasons to go along with 15 tackles for loss. So when you look at, around the league and what they've been able to produce, and you compare it to the Lions, I don't know where people are saying that we didn't address the defensive line, because absolutely we did. But the better pick would have been George Karlaftis, who's been an absolute stud. 24.5 sacks. This is a guy, again, that I don't understand how we missed. But when you look at my roster roulette board that has all the measurements, he had a couple of concerning measurements. Maybe that's why the Lions steered away from him. I'm not even sure that we were in play without taking him way too early. Defensive end Peyton Turner, out of Houston in 2021. He's dealt with a number of injuries. He's played in just 15 games in his first 3 seasons. 2 sacks, 3 tackles for a loss. Probably a miss. The better pick, Greg Rousseau. So again, who's available at 2028? It can be a mixture. When you look at a lot of the defensive players that have been selected, it is a mixed bag. Some hit, some don't. But I'm not concerned about who Brad brings in at 28 or if he backs off at 28. Personally, I think that we don't need a 5th-year option on this year's draft. I think that you trade out. I think you try to trade back. Either you trade back to the Philadelphia Eagles 32 pick, or you try to get into 33, 34, 35, where the meat of the draft really starts for some leftover defensive end and defensive tackles and linebackers, and you gain some picks to move back up into the early 40s, where, again, you're going to find another amazing opportunity for the defensive line. I think that all 3 positions should be addressed this year, and it's not, again, so much about one area of the defense. It is time to fill the pipeline. So that's where I'm at on that. What do you think about pick 28, Eric?
I just have to wonder, is Brad going to stay there? Is he actually going to take a pick at 28? Is he going to move up like he did last year, or is he going to move down? I think we were in this same conversation last year, and we were kind of hoping that he would move out or move way up. And that's kind of where I am this year, that either he goes way up and gets like the best defensive tackle or defensive edge, or he moves back because there's more meat in this 2nd and 3rd round. Maybe pick up an additional 2nd and 3rd rounder for a 1st rounder. So that wouldn't hurt my feelings.
The last 2 drafts, I'd have to go back and look at the exact numbers because my brain doesn't remember everything all the time. Thanks to, post-cancer medicine, it really screws with you. I want to say in 2023, I said the meat of the draft was between 26 and 45. And if I remember correctly, I had Mozzie Smith going at 26. And I thought if the Lions wanted to get a defensive tackle of the future, I was okay with Mozzie Smith. But, man, he hasn't done a damn thing for the Cowboys. Not a damn thing. So the picks that Brad made were spot on. But, again, my numbers weren't wrong, right? Mozzie went, I think, 26 it was to the Cowboys. And then after that, the meat of the draft was clearly between 26 and like 40, 45. Last year, I said the same thing. I said that I thought the meat of the draft, again, memory's got to serve me correct here, and I'm just going to guess that it was probably between 30 and 45 or 30 and 50, where a lot of defensive, players were going to be available that could, be dynamic for your team. Here, let me just pull it up.
Who did the Cowboys end up taking with the 29th pick last year?
I'll tell you in just a second. Give me one second. Right. It was Tyler Guyton. They took an offensive tackle.
Okay.
So when you look at last year's draft, and again, if my memory is correct, and it was like between 30 and 45 that I was calling the meat of the draft for some of these defensive players. Let's see where we're at. You had Rook Arororo. God, I just that is my Ziggy Ansah. That's my Ziggy comparison is Rookie. I love that kid. I think he's going to have an amazing career. Jerzon Newton was at pick 36. Trevonde Sweat was at pick 38. Braden Fisk was at 39. Mason Smith, I don't know enough about him. He was pick 48. Chris Jenkins, Bengals, 49. Michael Hall Jr., defensive tackle, Ohio State, 54. So there you go. You had Marshawn Nealon that went 56th overall. And Chris Braswell went 57th overall. So, again, I think I was pretty spot on that the meat of the draft was right there. I think it was between 30 and 50. And you had a couple of guys even drop out beyond 50, with Marshawn Nealon and Chris Braswell. So, again, this year, I'm kind of in that same boat. I think that it makes more sense to move up into the early second round, get the hell out of the first round. 28 is such a fickle pick because you're right at the end of the first round where does it really make sense to pay first round money for someone that you're probably going to reach for anyway because you could probably get him in the second round unless someone is dropped in the draft or you have a draft like last season where you have like 15 offensive players taken. Then, yeah, a lot of players started dropping. So, again, this year, I'm not as concerned. I think that it makes more sense to back out of the draft right now in the first round, get into the second round, add another second-round pick that is before, pick 45. Try to keep your pick 60. And if the Lions could somehow manufacture 3 picks between 33 and 60, that's all we need. We honestly really don't even need another pick in this draft. That's really all we would need. But that won't happen. We're still going to have more picks. But I've been saying it every year, and that's because third-round picks don't play. 15% of all third-round picks play in the NFL. So where people are calling a miss on Bromart, look, he's a third-round pick, number 96. Go look at all the third-round picks that play. Matter of fact, go look at the 85% of them that don't. That's why I've never been a fan of 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th-round picks. I've never been a fan. I think that if I was a GM, they would probably think I'm nuts because I would trade as many of my late round picks as I could to move up. If you're in a rebuild, you need every pick, even 7th rounders. You need them all. And that's why a lot of our draft picks played the first couple of seasons because we needed them all. We didn't have anybody. And I think that that's what people are judging Brad Holmes on is that he hit so well in the first few drafts, or did he? No, those players just played because we needed them to play. They got a ton of experience, and now they're really high-quality depth. So, pick 28. You guys tell me in the chat, in the comments, you trading back? You moving up? Because if you're going to move up in this year's draft, who are you going after? Do you have any idea, Eric? Have you really looked?
No, not yet. I'm just now starting to get into draft stuff. I watched that video you sent me with Trey
Amos.
Oh,
I love that kid.
Man, I like how he bats the ball away all the time.
Did you see the similarities with Terry and Arnold?
Yes. Yeah. Except he likes to slap the ball away. And that's the thing that Terrian needs to learn to do is turn his body, slap that ball away. Because he's in position. He just doesn't slap the ball away like he should be. He started doing it later in the year, but earlier in the year, he was more trying to stay locked on the person's hip and not turning his head, not turning for the ball. But he's getting it. It's coming.
Yeah, it's coming. So, again, if you're going to move up into this draft, and when I'm looking at even the top 12, according to some analysts, it's Travis Hunter, Ashton Genty, Abdul Carter, Mason Graham, the wide receiver McMillan, Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, cornerback Will Johnson, defensive end James Pierce, offensive tackle Kelvin Banks, offensive tackle Will Campbell, cornerback J.D. Barron. So out of all of those players, unless you're getting into the top 10, you're not getting any of them right now.
Yeah.
And to get into the top 10 is going to cost you pick 28. It's going to cost you 26 first round. And it's also going to cost you probably our third round pick this year, which is a compensatory you could get rid of. So it's an extra pick. And it might even cost you a second round pick in 26. It's not worth it. You know what? I do have the exact information here. Hold on. So if you were to move up to number 10, Oh, I mean, look, the Vikings moved from 11 to 10, and that cost them obviously a pick swap, 11 to 10, and they lost a 4th and a 5th round pick just moving one spot, and they got a 6th round pick in return. If you were to move to number 17 from 23, so just 6 picks, it cost the Vikings a 1st pick swap, 17 for 23, a 3rd, a 4th, and a 5th. Just 6 spots.
And that's why they have 3 picks in the draft this year.
Exactly. Let's see. The Chiefs, they moved up 4 spots, 32 to 28. That cost them a 4th and a 7th. I'm sorry, they got a 1st, a 4th, and a 7th. They traded away their 1st, a 3rd, and a 7th. So really it cost them a 3rd round pick. But again, when you look at how much it really costs to move up, it's crazy. So I'd have to find another comparable to go from 28 to 10. But I can almost guarantee you it's going to be a 1st swap this year, a 1st next year, at least a 3rd or 2/3, probably 2 firsts and 2/3, or it could be 2 firsts, a 3rd, and a 2nd to go from 28 to top 10, without a doubt. It could be even more than that. So it just doesn't make sense. So I guess where I'm going with this is, who are you going to take in the top 15 then? So if you were to move up from 28 to 15, that's going to cost you at least pick swap first. So 28 to 15. It's going to cost you a 3rd, a 4th, a 5th, and probably next year's 1st to do it. It's a boatload of picks. Now we have a couple of compensatory picks. So I would do a pick swap 1, trade both my compensatory picks, 25 and 26. And you could probably throw in a 4th rounder of 26 and possibly pull it off. So 1st, 2/3, and a 4th. No, that won't do it. You're going to need a 2nd round pick in there.
Who are you going up to get?
Okay, so who are we going up to get? Well, Michael Williams, defensive end out of Georgia, 6'5", 265, runs a 4.65. So he's possibility that he's going to be taking top 15. Otherwise, you have defensive tackle Walter Nolan. You have Nick Scorton, defensive edge. You have Shamar Stewart, which then you're reaching, right? You're going to move all the way up to grab somebody that I don't believe will not be there later in the 1st round.
And Carter's going to be gone by then?
What's that?
And Carter's going to be completely gone by then?
Oh, yeah. Carter's going to be gone, in my opinion, top 5. Unless there's a bunch of trade backs, like I said in my 1st round mock this last weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I think the teams are stupid to stay where they are in the top 5. I think that they should have to move back, understanding that none of these quarterbacks overly excite. But I think that if you're a quarterback strapped team, you need a quarterback, you got to take a quarterback. I think Shedeur Sanders would do well sitting for a season. But then again, he could totally transform a franchise that has an offensive line already. If they don't have an offensive line, don't ruin the kid. But Abdul Carter, right now, he's going to be a top 3 pick. I think it's top 5, and I think it highly depends on what goes on with the quarterback situation, like it does every year. The quarterbacks dictate the top 10. They always do. So again, there's really nobody to grab. There's no reason to move up unless you're going to take a defensive tackle early or James Pierce. I don't think that you're going to get James Pierce in the top 15 right now.
And this might be exactly what we were talking about the other day, the marshmallow test.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about the old marshmallow test.
You know, do you sit back and wait, or do you take your marshmallow now?
Again, I think that Brad Holmes is not willing to F the picks. I think that he would rather wait for 3 marshmallows.
Yep.
And I think by him waiting and finding a suitor at 28 makes more sense. Move back. If you can move back, put it this way. If Landon Jackson, Nick Scorton, Darius Alexander, Princely, Umenamian, I probably butchered his name. I doubt Jack Sawyer's going to be there. If those 3 are available And if Jihad Campbell, TJ Sanders, those 5, if those 5 are available at pick 28, and you can trade back to pick 20 or pick 33. Yeah, pick 33. Then I think you have a high likelihood of scoring one of those players at pick 33. And you're going to move back to 33, and you're going to gain at least a 3rd round pick. At least. You might even be able to squeeze somebody for a late second. So I think that that's the play. You've got to stay at 33, 34, 35, and you have to have at least 5 defensive linemen / linebackers / edge rushers available that you graded really high on your board. You'll get one of them. There's no way that 7, defensive linemen, front 7 are going to be off the board that quickly between 28 and 33 or 34, 35. So that's my play for the Lions. Move back. Gain some second round draft cap. But we'll talk more about that when I get out mock draft number 2. Final wrap up to you today, Eric. What are we doing?
All right, so I got a little bit of news. This comes from Trace from the Voxer chat. The Detroit Lions have announced some hires, and these were not announced previously. So we have Caleb Collins as a defensive assistant, August Mangin as a defensive assistant, Justin Mesa as an offense quality control, and Marquise Tuiasosopo as an offensive assistant. So I don't know who any of these guys are. I don't know where they've coached before, if they've never coached before. But the Lions have 4 new assistants, and that's going to fill out their staff as far as I know. Last night, there was a very cool interview with Brad Holmes. It was about 45 minutes long that I watched last night. If you get a chance to watch it today. And he talks all about how he started out as an assistant and living in Atlanta and working for a basketball team and having to work on the side doing car rentals for Enterprise just to make ends meet, because his job as an assistant for this basketball team in their marketing department just didn't pay enough money. So it's pretty cool. And he talks about who his heroes are. And if you get a chance, watch it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I wanted to highlight that tomorrow. So we'll do movie day tomorrow, movie day Wednesday. Okay. We'll highlight Brad Holmes' interview. We still have the 2024 presser to get through. So maybe we'll do that first and get that out of the way, or maybe I'll do it tonight or something. I will be back tonight. That is the plan, as long as I don't get sick, because everybody in my house is sick, which I'm not looking forward to. I'm trying to stay away. So
go live in your garage for a while.
Yeah, right. I'll just go downstairs in the spare bedroom.
Me and the wife have said we're not going anywhere. We're not doing anything. And now we have to go grocery shopping today.
Yeah, I got to do that too. So I have not looked at the new coaching hires. So my question is going to be this. Let's find this out for tomorrow, Eric.
Yeah.
How many extras did we grab? Did we go 1-for-1 replacement, or did we add some extra assistants?
I think we added some that weren't there previously.
I think we did too.
Made some new jobs up.
And I think that means that Sheila is not afraid to spend money. Yep. And that they're trying to fill our pipeline and overfill our pipeline. We need more eyes. More eyes on the squad.
Yeah, if I remember right, they're not limited on how many coaches they can have.
You can have as many as you want. So the coaching salaries are obviously not a part of the salary cap. So you can do whatever you want with your front office. That comes out of, their own money. And look, the Lions just made a mint in 24 and 23. But they probably had the biggest season of of their record. I'm curious to know how much the Lions made. I guarantee you it's the most they've ever made in 24.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's no reason why that you don't take that money and spend it. Just like a new business, you don't take all of your money and spend it on you. No, you reinvest it into your company, for at least for the first 3 years. So I'm expecting that since we're the brand new Lions with a brand new owner, right? It's reinvest. Keep filling that pipeline so that when we lose more coordinators, which is bound to happen, that we're ready to go. So anyway, thank you guys for joining us today. Man, is it cold. We didn't even get to half the stuff today. So we'll have more topics for you guys tomorrow. Movie day tomorrow. We're going to be getting into Brad Holmes' presser of 2024 and kind of wrap up what we started with the presser of 2023. And Brad Holmes tells us what he's doing. Video dropping soon. I appreciate all of the people that reached out to me, kind of concerned about some information that came out yesterday that didn't seem to make sense. Apparently we took Broderick Martin ahead of Max Crosby and others. I don't know how that's even possible, but you're going to find out in the video that I put together about some stats and some facts about Broderick and where he was drafted. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Go on Pride. Go Detroit Lions. You guys have a wonderful day. Stay warm.